Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Dan's Struggles with the West Shore RCMP and the BC courts. In this episode, Dan has his first day of actual trial, where we get to hear from Canada's top terrorism cop, Arun Kundu-Thomsen. But he's not tech savvy. Those are his words, not mine. Question, Mr. Thompson. How in the world could Canada's top terrorism cop not be tech savvy when the most likely terrorist attack would surely come from the cyber realm rather than the physical? Also, what investigator worth his salt in this new age is not tech savvy? There isn't any. Answer my own question. Unless maybe you're a terror savant. Ooh, or some kind of Sherlock Holmes of terrorism. Indubitably. Also, Mr. Barber, I wonder if Dan had counsel, would you have followed him out into the lobby and threatened to follow him home? I don't think so. I think that you tried to intimidate him and harass him to get him to change his plea, because you know you didn't have a case. All in all, it was thinly veiled, and anyone with half a brain could see right through it. You would make a very good politician. Liars often do. Now, I need to make a plea to all of you viewers out there. I hope you're all tech savvy, because if you're not, you're probably going to have a problem with this next part. But please share the crap out of this series and go to Dan's YouTube page, News Now Victoria, and subscribe. But if nothing else, please help us get the story out. Thank you in advance, and I hope you enjoy the video.
All rise.
Oh my God, you guys, I cannot believe it. The judge is Judge Malin McKim, one of the two judges that I actually wanted, the former criminal defense lawyer. Oh my God, I'm so relieved. Oh my God, this is going to be a cakewalk. Oh my God, here we go.
And calling number 2 from your honor's list, the matter of Dan
Barber, first initial N for the Crown, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Dan, the accused, appearing in person without counsel.
Thank you. Dan, what's happening today?
Ready to proceed on the mischief allegation, Your Honor.
All right.
The Crown has one witness by video, as you can see, and 2 witnesses here in person.
All right. So, Dan, the process is going to be that we're going to start the hearing evidence now. No evidence or material is relevant to me unless it's given under oath. Witnesses will testify by video or by whatever other process, and you'll hear their evidence, and you'll be entitled to ask them questions as may be relevant to whatever this inquiry is about. Understand that I know nothing about this case. I have no idea. I have read that you're charged on July 25th. You interfered with the lawful use of property, to wit, the RCM. The West Shore RCMP detachment. That's all I know.
Okay.
Okay. So I know nothing about you. So listen carefully to the witnesses. Do you have a piece of paper there, and a pen you can make some notes while it's going on?
I do.
When the Crown is finished with this witness, then you'll be entitled to ask questions. After you finish asking questions, the Crown may have the odd question that arises from your questions. All right.
Re-exam.
And then we'll go one witness after another. After the Crown has closed its case, then you'll be entitled to call evidence if you wish. Understand that there is a presumption of innocence. You stand here before me an innocent man. If the Crown calls no evidence whatsoever, you are entitled to an acquittal. If the Crown calls evidence but doesn't satisfy me beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty of the offense, you are entitled to an acquittal. And that never shifts to you under any circumstances, okay? You have no obligation to testify. You have no obligation to call witnesses, and regularly accused persons don't call witnesses. They simply will say the Crown hasn't proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. Mischief is pretty self-explanatory. It means that you're charged. As a result of your behavior, you prevented the West Shore RCMP from executing their lawful rights on the property by allowing them to do whatever it is they want to do. So I don't know what is the obstruction, or what's the mischief damaging it or...
No, Your Honor. And I can give a brief opening now,
Sure.
if you want.
Okay. So listen carefully to the opening. The opening is not evidence. It's simply what the Crown says they intend to prove and how they intend to prove it, so you'll have some sense of where the evidence is going, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I don't believe there has been entered, please.
Oh, Dan, you have been charged on the 25th of July, 2018, at or near West Shore, in the province of British Columbia, did commit mischief by willfully obstructing, interrupting or interfering with the lawful use, enjoyment, or operation of property. To wit, the West Shore RCMP detachment, contrary to S-430 of the Criminal Code. Having heard that charge, how do you wish to plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
All right. Very well. A plea of not guilty is now recorded. Okay. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Your Honor. Briefly, before I give you an opening about what this case is about, I'd ask that an order be made excluding witnesses.
All right. Dan, any witnesses that you intend to call must remain in the hallway, all right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the same with the Crown as well, obviously.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, Your Honor, I would also ask that an order be made, although it doesn't need to be made, that recording not take place inside the courtroom.
All right. You understand that you're not entitled to record anything that takes place in a court? Everything is recorded for you, so a recording is available to you immediately if you need
I'm
one.
well aware that the accused has the right to listen to the recordings after the proceedings.
That's correct.
As well as...
But you can't make your own.
As well as order transcripts, which I've
Correct.
already done.
Correct.
And I'm not recording the proceedings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So thank you, Your Honor. On July 25th, 2018, Dan along with a friend of his attended at the West Shore RCMP detachment. It's alleged that Dan was wearing a body camera as well as in possession of other recording devices. He entered into the West Shore RCMP detachment recording as he entered, recording civilians inside the detachment who were going about their business and either interacting with RCMP or there to report a crime or possibly witnesses. It's unclear, but there are civilians coming in and out of the detachment who were recorded. Dan then provided a notice of sorts to the front desk of the detachment indicating that he was with local media and would be recording in and around the detachment. This all caused some concern for civilian staff members, and they reported it to the watch commander, who was Corporal Kundu-Thomsen, who is the gentleman that was briefly on video, and he will be the first witness when we get him back.
Okay.
Police officers then attended to the location of Dan to have a conversation with him about why he was recording civilians, civilian vehicles, member vehicles, and the detachment. Dan was confrontational at that time and refused to provide his identification, simply referring the police again back to this notice that he had drafted. So the police, being concerned about what Dan was doing and why, continued in conversation with him for some period of time trying to gather some more information which Dan refused to provide. And he was then arrested for obstruction and mischief, at which point he was taken into the detachment, not handcuffed, but taken into the detachment so that further inquiries could be made. His recording equipment was seized and then he was subsequently released. Now it's the Crown's theory, Your Honor, that Dan is not a member of any media organization. He was not, as he claimed, there for any legitimate purpose, but rather was seeking confrontation with the RCMP. And in that sense was able to get at least part of what he wanted that day. Although, the police did not handcuff him, and Your Honor will be shown a couple of videos, it's clear by those videos that that's, in fact, what Dan wanted. He also had his friend recording the interactions between him and the RCMP, and Dan is well known to the local RCMP as well as other detachments for similar kinds of behavior, which of course increased the concerns about Dan as it related to the West Shore RCMP detachment on July 25, 2018. The Crown is not going to stand up at the end of the day and say that no one is permitted to ever videotape a police detachment in certain circumstances, but context is everything here. And Dan was not engaged in any kind of legitimate media activity or even personal civilian activity. He was there for the purpose of starting a confrontation. So the mischief that was caused is that persons who may have been at the detachment to report crimes or present themselves as witnesses were being recorded. That obviously cast a pall on persons who were trying to go about their rightful business at the police detachment. And it also interfered with the operation of the detachment by forcing the civilian and peace officer employees of the RCMP to deal with Dan, to take time out of their busy schedule to have a conversation with him and then being forced, essentially, to arrest him due to Dan refusing to cooperate with them or showing even any common courtesy as far as interacting with them. That, in a nutshell, Your Honor, is what this case is about.
Is there not a trespass or unlawfully? It's not public property. I'm just saying, are there alternative convictions you might seek in the event that? Is there not an unlawfully? I'm just curious whether there are other routes that I need to keep my mind open to.
Yes, Your Honor. I did turn my mind to that prior to charge approval. I am not aware of any specific criminal code sanctions that involve this sort of activity as it relates to a police detachment. There certainly are trespass provisions, but those primarily deal either with trespass by night.
By night, right.
Or civil ramifications.
Of course.
Now there certainly are allowances for this kind of activity in certain circumstances. Most commonly it's in union dispute contexts when recording is made of different facilities or industrial properties. But there is simply no rational reason for Dan to be doing this other than he is seeking to cause a confrontation.
Okay.
And he likely will have a different point of view about that, Your Honor.
Well, I'm sure.
And may provide evidence in that regard, but I am certainly at this point not aware of any of that evidence.
All right. Let's go.
Thank you, Your Honor. So if we can try to dial in to Corporal Kundu-Thomsen. He's going to affirm, Madam Clerk, please. Just while Mr. Sheriff is doing that, Your Honor, as well I draw Your Honor's attention to Section 429 as well as Section 430 where it makes it clear that this isn't a general intent offense. Recklessness applies and so that would be the test at the end of the day. And I'll have more to say about that at the end, but...
Thank you.
Could you just stand for a moment? Could you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
My lord, my name is Arun Kundu-Thomsen. First name is spelled Arun. Surname is spelled Kundu-Thomsen.
It's funny. Arun Kundu-Thomsen thinks we're in Supreme Court. He's calling the judge my lord, which you only do in Supreme Court. We're in provincial court. You call the provincial court judge Your Honor, not my lord.
Thank you. Sir, have a seat if you wish, or stand as, whatever you prefer.
Thank you, my lord.
Thank you, Corporal. You're currently testifying from Cornwall, Ontario. Is that right?
That is correct, my lord.
And you were transferred there some time after this incident that occurred on July 25th of 2018. Is that right?
That is correct, my lord.
Now, on July 25th of 2018, you were the acting watch commander of the West Shore RCMP detachment?
That is correct. I was the watch commander in uniform on that date.
And what is the role of the watch commander? What? The role that you had on July 25th, 2018? What are your responsibilities vis-a-vis the detachment and the persons working there?
My lord, I am basically the supervisor in charge of the entire uniform component for that day. Part of my responsibility, as Crown has indicated, is also for the safety and security of all of the civilian members, all of the people that work in the building, my own members. In the building as well. That is part of the watch commander's duty.
Corporal, at about 3 p.m. were you advised that there was an unknown male video recording at the West Shore detachment?
That is correct, my lord. Corporal Baden Jones came up to myself and Sergeant Pask, who were just arriving at the detachment from a caller from outside. And Corporal Jones approached us and indicated exactly what Crown has indicated. There was a man filming the back parking lot, the secure compound of our detachment, where private vehicles are parked alongside police vehicles.
So that part of the detachment, does it contain numbered obvious police vehicles as well?
That is correct, my lord. There are marked police vehicles. There are unmarked police vehicles. There are also personal vehicles for the police officers and for the civilian staff. That's why it is a restricted parking lot specifically for the detachment employees and police vehicles.
And at that time when you were notified that there was a gentleman video recording that part of the detachment, did that cause you any concerns at that time?
Yes, it did, my lord. As I indicated, the watch commander's role is responsibility for the safety and security of the staff in the building, specifically the municipal police and the uniformed members. My concerns were specifically because we had incidents in the previous 5 days previous. We had a male in the back parking lot who was also confrontational when he was arrested after he identified himself. He actually had a syringe and half a pair of scissors in his pocket. So it's not unusual. We've had a few incidents in our back parking lot recently that caused a lot of fear for the municipal employees. And when someone is in the back parking lot, they do not feel safe going out to their vehicle.
While we're getting Corporal Kundu-Thomsen back, Your Honor, I'll just text, if I may with permission, the tech person at their end to inform them of the problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if you heard my full answer, my lord. If not, maybe Crown could advise.
You said that there had been an incident earlier where a male was found with a syringe and half a pair of scissors. And it's important that people feel safe when they're in the back in the reserved parking lot.
That is accurate, my lord. That was 5 days previous to this event with Dan. And about 2 months prior to that, there was also an incident where a male came to the detachment and using force after the detachment doors are locked, ripped open the front doors and entered the lobby, indicating he was testing the response by the police. A few months prior to that, we had a male come to the back area exactly where Dan was filming with 2 large kitchen knives, one in each hand. And he tried to get into the back door, which is a secure door. He was also taken down at gunpoint because of the 2 weapons in his hands. And again, prior to that there were various incidents at West Shore. And just a little over a year previous, the Namor detachment had another incident where an individual beset the back parking lot of the detachment watching it. And when members came out, that individual came into the back parking lot with a vehicle and tried to ram the members. They jumped out of the way and the individual hit garbage containers. With all of this in mind, as a watch commander, I have to be very cognizant of what's happening around the detachment for the safety of the individuals, members coming and going, the public. And Dan in that back area did cause me a safety concern, which is why he was approached.
Now, there's many employees that...
Hang on. Just a second, Mr. Barber.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Is there a problem?
I'm sorry, I apologize. I missed which detachment. Is this person rammed in a vehicle ramming something? What detachment was that?
My lord, that was the Namor detachment in the back parking lot.
Nanaimo, thank you.
But we get bulletins about issues that happen all over the island. Threats to police offices.
Thank you.
Now, Corporal, many of the vehicles in that back lot belong to civilian employees. Is that right?
That is correct, my lord. All the civilian members, clerks, records, 911 dispatchers, all the civilian support staff, that is their parking area as well. And their personal vehicles are all there in the immediate area that was being filmed.
Now did you then attend with Sergeant Past to inquire as to what this individual who was filming was about, what he was doing?
I lost a little bit of that question in the feed, my lord. But yes, I did approach the individual to ask him what his intentions and his purpose was, and also to ask him to identify himself. Because at this point in time, when something like this happens because of the security concern, the safety of our civilian staff and our members, I have to put in a security incident report. And also, I wanted to assess what exactly was going on if there was a threat to my staff. The civilian staff essentially wouldn't come out in the back parking lot with this male in the back, which is one of the reasons Corporal Jones, I believe, was sent out there.
Now did Corporal Jones provide you with a piece of paper that had been left at the front desk of the detachment by the individual who was doing the video recording?
Yes, my lord. Corporal Jones had a piece of paper in his hand. He did have it. He showed it to me while I was talking to Dan, and it was a bit of notice that Dan would be filming in the area, but it did not have his name. It did not have an actual media affiliation. It didn't have a contact number. We've been given documents like that before at the front counter from, if you want to call it mainstream media, but they always individually put down the name of the person, a contact person if there's any concerns, and also a phone number. This note had none of that.
And did you make note of? Well, first of all, do you have a copy of that notice with you?
I do, my lord. I have it here. It was provided with the disclosure package or with. It was provided by Crown to me.
Okay. Can you please read to us what that notice says?
Yes, my lord. My lord, I'm back. If you can hear me?
I can, thank you, yes.
Okay, so, my lord, Crown asked me to read the notice that was dropped at our front desk, and I have it here in front of me. I will read for you. It says, Notice, please be advised local independent media of communication is in your area today to take pictures and video to be published for news purposes and to communicate matters of public interest. You will likely notice someone in a high-vis vest taking pictures and video of this property, buildings, vehicles, signs, staff, etc. Please do not be alarmed. This should all take between 30 to 60 minutes depending on activity in the area. The photography will be done from public sidewalks as much as possible, and no unauthorized entry into restricted areas will be attempted. All signage regarding restricted access have been acknowledged prior to this visit. Thank you. And again, my lord, when we get these types of notices in the past, they usually have a name, a media affiliation, and a contact number as well on them just for accountability's sake. This notice had none of that.
All right. Thank you, Corporal Thompson. I'm not going to ask that be made an exhibit at this time, Your Honor. I'll have one of the other officers present the original.
Well, let's mark it as A just so...
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. I have another copy here.
Thank you.
Now at the time that you went, at the time that you were notified that there was an individual recording at the detachment, did you know who Dan was?
I did not, my lord. I had not met nor heard of Dan prior to this event.
Okay. Now, when you attended to interact with Dan, was Sergeant Greg Pask with you?
Sergeant Pask was with me and Corporal Baden Jones was also present.
All right. And where approximately did you finally interact with Dan?
Dan was on the north. If you want to call it the northwest corner sidewalk of the detachment just off the property line, I believe would be the best way to describe it.
And?
Just off the driveway exit.
Of the driveway exit. And what were you, or were you able to observe what he was doing at that time when you approached him?
My lord, Dan had a camera on a tripod, and I believe it was facing down towards the street. He indicating, I guess, or to make it look like he was filming the street sidewalk area. He also had on him a GoPro camera on his chest. And that's what alarmed me is the fact that a camera on a tripod is stationary, but everywhere Dan turned, he is filming our secure compound with personal vehicles. So he had a camera on his chest at that point in time, was the camera in his hand and a cell phone as well. Subsequently, I also found that he had a camera on his eyeglasses as well, and that's specifically where he was when I approached him. And every time he turned towards the detachment, because of the, I guess, the placement of the GoPro on his chest and the other cameras, they filmed directly into the actual secure compound area.
Now when you approached Dan, did you ask him what he was doing?
Yes, my lord. I asked him what the intent was with his filming, and I also asked him if he had any identification, because I was trying to ascertain, specifically, we've had issues with groups called Freemen on the Land, sovereign citizens, and I was trying to ascertain what his intent was. Again, being the watch commander, I have all of these things in the back of my mind. I know what's happened in our parking lot recently. I know what happened in the Namor detachment. I am responsible for the safety of everyone in the detachment. Our civilian staff are now not wanting to go in the back parking lot because an individual was there filming, so I asked Dan what his intent was and for identification.
And what was Dan's response to you?
Well, he wouldn't provide any identification. He said he had none on him.
And did he refer you to the notice that he had left at the front counter?
That is correct, my lord. He said he left a...
Maybe if we stand down for 2 minutes, Your Honor, it might work better. I'll just phone the tech at that end and ask him to keep us connected. Or is this permissible?
Well, is it being cut off deliberately?
Well, I don't think so, but...
I can hear you again, my lord.
Is there some reason at your end, officer, that you keep getting cut off?
I can see I have the camera with you, and I also have a camera with my feed. My feed is never interrupted.
Oh.
Your feed seems to disconnect every few minutes. But I don't know whose end it's. Where the problem is, my lord.
Okay.
I'm not that tech savvy. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We'll soldier on, Your Honor.
Thank you.
After Dan. Sorry.
You were in the middle of a sentence. You said he. You said Dan said he left a notice. And then we lost you. So you were just articulating to me what Dan said to you.
Yes. So the notice was with Corporal Jones. Corporal Jones handed it to me. I asked Dan for identification. He indicated he did not have any. I asked him what his intent was, and he said just to film the property. At this time, Corporal Jones handed me the notice, and that's when I read the actual notice that was handed out. And as I indicated, my lord, it had no contact number, no actual company affiliation, whether it was, if you want to call it mainstream or independent. Usually there's some company name. And it had no contact number or any contact details on it. It was just a generic notice.
And did you engage in a conversation with Dan about what your concerns were?
Yes. I indicated to Dan that in lieu of current trends, filming secured areas of police offices or government buildings is something that brings a lot of concern to the police and to government officials specifically. And I also advised him that I would be happy to file a security incident report because of this, because he's not filming the front of the detachment, which, what mainstream media normally does for stock footage. He was filming the secure area and capturing license plates. So this is why I addressed that concern to him. I advised him that I would have to be putting in a security incident report, and that he would be a subject of that security incident report, which is why I asked him for his ID.
And then did you ask Dan again to provide his identification to you?
I did, my lord. I asked him several times to provide identification. First, he indicated that he had no identification, but he could still provide me a name and date of birth, which many people do, and then we can confirm by description that it is that individual. So I did ask him more than once to provide his information, identity.
And did he provide that verbally or otherwise?
He did not, my lord. First, he indicated that he did not have any identification, and then when I asked him flat out for his name, he would not provide that either.
So at this point now you're interacting with Dan, You have civilian employees who are afraid to go out to their vehicle. You have 3 members, peace officers, who are dealing with Dan outside of the detachment, and you have these other concerns. Is that right?
That's correct, my lord. At that point in time we have to, like I said, I'm responsible for the safety of the detachment and I am, to resolve the matter civilly and cordially. If Dan had given me his identity or a mainstream company or a press card, that would have been the end of it. And I would have asked him to move around to the front of the detachment and asked him to delete anything that compromised any security of the back of the detachment. In good faith, media have done that in the past, but Dan just continued not to want to provide information as to his identity.
Now at this point, do you have any information that Dan is part of any sort of media group, either formal or independent or otherwise?
Once I read the notice, my lord, it did say, a local independent media and communications, I guess, local independent media, it quotes, specifically, the notice says, please be advised. Local independent media, so I believe that I am too, that he is from local independent media. But normally they do provide a name, whether it's a video blogger, City TV, Global TV, Czech TV, they provide some.
Here we are.
Okay. So Corporal Kundu-Thomsen, have you at any point, you yourself, been provided with any information from Dan that he was in fact a part of any kind of local independent media?
Other than his utterings in this notice, I have not.
Okay. Was there another gentleman located nearby as well?
Yes, my lord, there was another individual who I saw and he was north of us with a separate video camera. He was facing away from us, but he had positioned the camera to videotape ourselves with Dan. This individual was approximately, I'd say 30 to 40 feet north of where we were on the sidewalk filming backwards without actually looking at us. So I guess he was looking at the viewfinder, or the little screen on the camera it appeared to be, and the camera was pointing at us. That way he didn't have to face us. And he appeared to be filming the interaction between us and Dan. And at this point in time, I realized, once I saw that mail, I realized that Dan, I believed at that point in time, was looking for some confrontation with police. Which again alarmed me even more as having an individual doing that. I saw no reason why somebody else would want to document his interaction with the police, unless they're trying to document some type of a conflict with police.
Now after several minutes of discussion with Dan, did it become clear to you that he was not going to provide any sort of identification, whether by document or verbally?
Yes, my lord, it did. He indicated he did not want to because of a specific Vancouver Island police investigator that he had some type of an interaction with. So given that, now I started to wonder. At this point in time I already told him, I'd warned him about public mischief, if he's trying to mislead the police. I also at this point in time have also told him that if he does not identify himself, I'm now talking to him, he's not under arrest. But I'm talking to authority of mischief and public mischief, and if he refused to identify himself further he'd be committing obstruction as well at this point in time. So I gave him many opportunities to identify himself. If he doesn't have identification with him, he could easily tell me who he is verbally. That's the practice that many people do when they don't have ID on them, and Dan did not want to do that. It was very apparent to me at that point in time that he was only there to document some type of conflict with us.
And once it became clear to you that he was not going to provide that information, or shed any light on what was going on, was he then arrested for obstruction?
My lord, yes. I gave him several warnings letting him know that he would be arrested for obstruction if he didn't provide any identification, because I am now looking at mischief. Public mischief initially because I thought he was trying to mislead us, and he still would not provide his identification, so he was placed under arrest for obstruction.
And what did Dan do when you told him that you were placing him under arrest?
Initially, first he indicated he did not believe it was a lawful arrest, but then at the same time he also, shortly thereafter, turned around and put his hands behind his back to be handcuffed. He wasn't violent. There were 3 of us and 1 of him, so I did not see the need to actually arrest him with handcuffs. So he was arrested, but I did not see the need to place handcuffs on him.
And this is all being, from what you could tell, videotaped by this second male, is that right?
That is correct, my lord. My belief was that the camera was pointing directly at us, that we were being videotaped by the second male. As well, I also knew from the camera, the GoPro camera on Dan's chest, that, yes, he was going to upload them onto his video blog, I believe, onto YouTube. That was his intention.
And did you ask him how you might view those videos for the URL or the address about how to do that?
Yes, I did ask him to provide the URL and or a contact, and he would not give that information to me as to how the could-be videos were observed, uploaded. So that way I could not see where he was actually uploading to, what media outlet, or whatever he actually was affiliated to. He would not provide me the URL when he was asked.
Okay. So he claimed to be local independent media, but he refused to share with you how he was going to present these videos presumably to the public?
5 minutes.
It appears to be every 4 minutes and 10 seconds, Your Honor.
I'm just about done, Your Honor, with the corporal.
But Dan may have a few questions.
Yes, no, I'm just letting you know. I'm happy to call at that point if that's what you want.
Dan, we're going to take a break. When we're done in direct and I'll ask Crown to call to find I've never had this happen before, that I've ever seen. So it's going to be very difficult for you to effectively cross-examine if we have to do this every 4 minutes and 10 seconds. So, officer, we're going to finish your evidence in chief, and then before. What does that logo mean?
It's probably telling us to hurry up.
Before we start cross-examination, we'll maybe stand down for a second and see if we can figure out what's going wrong.
Okay. Yes, my lord.
Thanks.
So just a couple of final questions, Corporal. I was just asking you, Dan had claimed to be local independent media, but he refused to share with you where these videos were going to be presented. Is that right?
That is correct, my lord. Other than YouTube, that was the only indication I got.
The identity of the second male, was that later determined to be Dean Bruce?
That is correct, my lord. I did not learn that. It was, I believe, one of the other corporals figured that out from a bulletin that had actually been circulated that they located after the fact while we were down in cells. And it was from a different detachment. I believe it was North Cowichan indicating there were suspicious males videotaping that detachment as well, and they meant to take photos of the males. At that point in time, I realized it was Dan and the other individual that was with him and somehow in that process, the other gentleman's name was surfaced as well.
All right. So that's information you came to be aware of after the arrest and dealing with Dan. Is that right?
That is correct. And, my lord, also just, when I did speak to the second male, that second male was not videotaping any of the secure areas. He wasn't videotaping any of our vehicles or back exit. He was only videotaping the sidewalk area which, because of where he was, he could not see or the camera did not record any of the secure areas or license plates specifically. So I allowed him to proceed because he was literally just videotaping the sidewalk where Dan and the police officers, including myself, were interacting. And that was, all of the other secure stuff was blocked by a building, so my concerns with him were not the same as they were with Dan. He only had one camera where Dan had multiple cameras.
All right. 2 more questions, Corporal. Subsequent to dealing with Dan on July 25th, 2018, did Dan then layer private information against you?
Yes, that is correct, my lord. After that, I went off shift after writing the basics of my report. When I came back on shift I had learned that, I think it was 2 days later, Dan had attended Colwood Courthouse and laid the private information against me for I believe it was criminal harassment and extortion and one other offense specific to that event. Because as I indicated prior to that event, I had never seen or heard of Dan, although he indicated criminal harassment and extortion in relation to the cameras in our interactions. So yes, he did swear private information against me.
And did that proceed in any fashion?
Well, my lord, for full transparency, I stepped back from the investigation and Sergeant Pask took it over. And yes, an independent crown did pick up that investigation, and RCC was created, I believe, or written, and I was notified subsequently after the fact downstream that it did not meet charge approval. His allegation.
And?
The standard for charge approval.
And are you also being sued civilly by Dan?
Yes, my lord. Dan has also launched a civil action against me for $10,000 punitive damage for, again, what happened in our back parking lot, even though he was arrested and Crown approved the charge. In my opinion, I believe it's basically just an attempt to intimidate me.
All right. Thank you, Corporal Kundu-Thomsen. We're going to take a brief break and then see if we can't sort out this technical problem before we go into cross-examination. Okay?
Thank you, my lord. I will just remain here.
Thank you very much.
Everything seems to be stable on this end.
That would be great.
Recalling the matter of Dan, Your Honor.
Just a couple more questions, Your Honor, about this notice and
Sure.
I'll be done. Corporal Thompson, you have a copy of the front and back of that notice, or you've seen that now, have you?
I have seen a copy of the back of the notice now electronically, yes.
Okay. And on the front of that notice does it have your initials, badge number, date and time, as well as seized from Constable Jones?
That is correct, my lord.
And did you write that, Like that's something that you wrote on there, is that right?
Yeah. That is after the fact. That's why it says 15:30 hours. So that would have been 3:30 after. That would have been down in cells that I wrote that.
Okay, and then on the back you've written 15:20 in cells got name from C13. Is that from the booking sheet and the prisoner report?
That is correct, my lord. The C13 is the prisoner report, which would have been the booking sheet. So after Dan identified himself to the constable that was processing him, that constable would enter in onto a booking platform, and I was looking over his shoulder, and that's when I saw the name.
Okay, and then you wrote down his name, an address from Victoria, and would not provide his cell number. That's all you're writing, is it?
That is, yeah.
Okay.
That is correct. So what would have happened there, my lord, is the constable that booked him and would have asked him for a cell number, and if they don't provide one, that's what would be indicated on the prisoner sheet.
All right. But again, this is all information you gathered after the arrest and after the booking in it?
That is correct, my lord. That's why it says 15:30 on the front side, because that's when I initialed it, assuming it was going to become a piece of evidence, and post the rest in the cell block.
All right. Exhibit B, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Exhibit B, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Corporal. I don't have any further questions. Please answer any questions that Dan has.
Yes.
Is it possible to turn up the volume on Corporal Kundu-Thomsen?
I think it's as loud as it will go, Your Honor.
Okay, fair enough. Okay to start, Your Honor?
No, because he's not here.
I spoke too soon.
All right. Dan.
Yes, Your Honor. If I may, as a courtesy of the court, I just want to let you know that Corporal Kundu-Thomsen is the arresting officer. The other two, I believe Crown is going to call another 2 police officers. Those other 2 police officers have very little to offer as far as cross-examination goes. However, Corporal Kundu-Thomsen, being the arresting officer, has considerable amount of questions for cross-examine. I just want to let you know, this will be somewhat lengthy. The other 2 police officers will not be lengthy.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Corporal Kundu-Thomsen, you have you have some amazing credentials as a police officer in Canada. Would you agree with me?
I am a corporal in the RCMP. I don't know. I don't rate my credentials compared to anyone else, my lord.
Okay, but you have a master's in terrorism and security studies, is that right?
That is correct, my lord.
And you are also a global security and intelligence specialist, correct?
My lord, I am of an intelligence unit right now here in Cornwall.
But that's part of your credentials as a global security and intelligence specialist.
That is part of what I studied in my master's program, my lord.
And you're a member of the TSAS?
That is correct. That is a civilian terrorism analyst group led by Dr. Lauren Dawson, who is a specialist in the field of security.
Thank you.
It's just an affiliation to that group because I read their newsletters. So I have to be a part of that group to read their newsletter.
Thank you. So would you agree with me that you're a terrorism expert?
I would not call myself an expert in anything. I'm not a subject matter expert in anything, my lord. I haven't been qualified or written or accepted as that by anyone. This is just something that I studied. I'm a specialist. You can call it that, but that's not an expert. The 2 things are separate.
So your master's of terrorism and security studies does not make you an expert in terrorism? Is that what you're saying?
Expert is a designation, my lord, that the courts have to recognize. I am not an expert, my lord. I am an intelligence specialist. I specialize in intelligence, and I have a master's in terrorism and security studies.
Okay. So, with your training and knowledge of terrorism and security studies, do you happen to know, has there ever been a terrorism attack attempt on Vancouver Island?
I'm not sure he would answer that even if it may be known.
I don't know if Dan is aware of the Victoria, Canada Day bombing attempt.
Yes, I am aware of it.
However, I'm not sure how this relates to this investigation.
Yes, I am aware of it.
So the short answer is yes.
I am aware of that one. That's the one where the appeal courts ruled that was RCMP manufactured terrorism, correct?
I am not in a position to speak to that, my lord.
You're aware of the...
But to answer.
You're aware of the BC Court of Appeal ruling on that matter?
We're wandering a bit afield here. Can you try to get refocused here?
I am aware of the rulings on that matter, my lord. But to answer the...
It's all right. Don't answer the question.
Gentleman's question.
It's all right. That's a legal question for me.
I apologize, Your Honor.
That's all right.
And in your credentials, you're effective with dealing with issues and problem solving of peers, partnering agencies, and the public, correct?
My lord, that's...
Thank you. And in your credentials... Oh, sorry.
Sorry. To finish that question,
Yes.
my lord, is those characteristics that Dan has indicated are pretty well the credentials of every police officer dealing with issues like that.
And in your credentials, you say that you are, quote, active duty, boots on the ground, law enforcement proven, unquote, correct?
That is correct, my lord. I was active duty, boots on the ground.
And in your credentials, you say that you are a, quote, manager of people, resources, and dedicated to service and public safety in high stakes, high risk industry, unquote. Is that right?
That is correct, my lord. I believe Dan is letting me know that he's done research on me online.
And in your credentials, you state that you do, quote, intelligence-led policing, unquote. Is that right?
That is part of the RCMP's mandate, my lord.
And in your credentials, you state that you're a, quote, major crime investigator / supervisor and plainclothes specialist, unquote. Is that true?
My lord, I was a plainclothes major crime, if you want to call it, NCO. NCO, non-commissioned officer, for several years, and also in plainclothes units. Yes.
And according to your credentials, you have over, quote, 25 years of solid experience in complex and major criminal investigations, national security, overt and covert, unquote. You're also a, quote, RCMP non-commissioned officer and a supervisor and a leader, unquote. Do I have that right?
That is correct, my lord. I have 26.5 years service in the RCMP.
And according to your credentials, you're also a, quote, organized crime and gang specialist, unquote. Is that right too?
That is correct, my lord. I worked several years for the Combined Forces Unit, and their mandate is organized crime. And the mandate of the unit that I am in right now is also organized crime.
And according to your credentials, you're also a, quote, extensive RCMP training, unquote. You have, quote, extensive RCMP training in law enforcement and criminal investigation, unquote. Is that true?
That is correct, my lord. As I stated, I have 26.5 years service and have gone through several RCMP training courses in those areas.
And according to your credentials, you are a, quote, real-time decision maker in high-risk matters, unquote. Do I have that right?
That is correct, my lord. Especially when I was a watch commander, everything was high risk in real time.
And according to your credentials, you are a, quote, subject matter expert in policing competencies, unquote. Is that right?
That is correct. I do have that designation for functional competencies for the promotional program in the RCMP, not in court. But that's for the promotional program. I'm an SME at that matter.
Thank you. And would you agree with me that you are an asset to the RCMP?
That's not a determination that I make. That would have to come from somebody outside. I can't self-designate myself.
So would you agree with me that when you're acting in your official capacity as a police officer, you know what you're doing, right?
My lord, I am aware of my duties as a police officer.
And you didn't rise to the rank of corporal in the RCMP by making mistakes. Would you agree with me?
My lord, there is promotional process underway in running for the RCMP, and of course mistakes would not advance you.
Thank you. Now you stated earlier that I had a camera in my sunglasses or eyeglasses. Do you recall saying that earlier?
It's what I believe to be a camera in your glasses or a head-mounted camera, if you want to call it that.
Okay. So it might not have been eyeglasses. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not a tech specialist, but it was a head-mounted camera, I believe.
Okay. Were any... You are back? Now, Corporal Kundu-Thomsen, were there any sunglasses or eyeglasses with cameras in them seized?
My lord, something was seized. A head-mounted camera was seized. Everything that was seized by Corporal Jones or Sergeant Pask, one of the other members who took him down to cell blocks.
So if I have that right, you didn't seize any devices?
I took the camera off of you, but as far as formally seizing them, one of the other members I believe seized everything, all of your effects. That would have been one of the other members down in the cell block. Dan.
So you personally did not seize 4 cameras and a cell phone, is that correct?
The cameras were seized collectively, if you want, for the investigation. As to what I specifically seized, my lord, I don't remember exactly which object I specifically seized. I did take them off his person, and then I handed them all to the constable downstairs or the corporal downstairs who was processing him for his affects. His affects would have all been seized, and then the cameras were seized as evidence, and I did submit a 5.2, so, in essence, yes. Since I submitted the 5.2 for all of the affects that were taken from him, yes, I did seize all of his affects.
You seized a Sony camera on a tripod from the sidewalk, correct?
I seized the camera and the tripod. I gave you the tripod back, and the camera did go into the overall items that were seized. So if you wish to be, for semantics, yes, I took control of them and seized them and handed them over to someone.
I'm only asking because you said you didn't seize any of the devices. So you also seized a chest camera. You personally took it off my body, correct?
That's correct.
And you personally used 2 hands to pull a cell phone out of my hand. You seized that, correct?
Yes, if you wish to call it seized. Yes, I did seize all of those items from you, for lack of a better term, your lordship, since I submitted the 5.2, and I took custody of the items from his person, for all intents and purposes, yes, they were seized by the police from him.
And in your statements...
By myself, if you wish to say that.
And in your statements, you state that in cells, you seized a small camera off my baseball cap, correct?
It was a head-mounted camera, to the best of my recollection now.
Okay. So you did seize 4 cameras and a cell phone, is that right?
My lord, I did submit the 5.2. They were all issued on there. So technically, yes, they were seized by myself.
And that was by physically seizing them with your own personal hands, correct?
Yes, my lord.
Thank you.
I took the camera off his chest because it was recording, and I did take, I believe, it was a camera from his hand or a phone, one of those items from his hands as well. And I did not physically rip them out of his hand. I basically removed the camera from his chest and I asked him for the camera in his hand.
And you mentioned earlier that I didn't have a press card, correct?
My lord, he would not provide any information or any identification. He indicated he had none on him.
And where would one obtain a press card?
I do not know, my lord. That's not my area of expertise.
And you also mentioned earlier that you could have asked me to delete some footage. Do you remember saying that just earlier?
I do recall saying that if, in the past, my lord, with mainstream media when they do videotape an area that they shouldn't be, specifically civilian vehicles, license plates, I've asked other media if they could ensure that they delete that footage. So I did say that.
And do you have lawful authority to demand anyone to delete footage off of a camera in your presence?
I do not have that lawful authority. As I indicated, my lord, I've asked previous media that have been at our detachments just to be alive to it, and if...
All right. Well, that's a good time for the afternoon break.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll see you back at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, Your Honor. So as we're now taking the afternoon break, there's some discussion going on between the court clerk and myself and Mr. Barber about how we're going to continue this matter. And it's at this time that Mr. Barber starts getting in these passive-aggressive sort of arguments with me in the courtroom. And he basically challenged me to a fight. And I thought, this is scary as hell, because he made sure there's an order that recording not take place in the courtroom. And now I know why. So now that the audio recorder for the courtroom has been turned off and nothing's being recorded, nothing's on the record, I decided to switch on a device just as I'm leaving the courtroom. So as I'm gathering up all my things and Mr. Barber's still trying to egg me onto a fight, I'm trying to ignore him. I'm trying to make it obvious to him that I'm trying to ignore him, and he keeps persisting. So as I've gathered up my stuff, I'm now walking out of the courtroom, and as I'm walking out of the courtroom, I flicked on a recording device. And this is what I recorded. This is the audio that I recorded. This is the actual audio that I recorded as I'm walking out of that courtroom and trying to exit the building. And my independent witness was sitting there listening to Mr. Barber. And one of the sheriffs that was in the courtroom that heard Mr. Barber, he knew that Mr. Barber was waiting outside of the courtroom. So he decided to basically escort myself and the independent witness out of the building. He obviously had some safety concerns for us because he was literally a foot behind us as we're walking out. He was literally like, if we would have stopped walking, he would have bumped into the back of us. So keep in mind, what you're about to hear was also heard by an independent witness and a sheriff. Here goes.
Lock her out. He's like calling me out. Yes. Oh, it's around there somewhere. I know. Oh, you don't need to be afraid just because people have suits on and stuff, you know? What does that mean? Goodbye. It means you're talking. No, but you don't want to listen. You want to learn. No, I don't want to listen. Goodbye. Maybe I'll follow you home. Excuse me? Maybe I'll follow you home. Like you follow the police everywhere. Follow me home. Like you follow the police to their home. Can I? Come on. Can we get the police? No. Come on, it's this. Come on, guys. Bye. Did you guys hear the prosecutor just say he's going to follow me home? You heard him say he's going to follow me home, right? Why is the prosecutor going to follow me home? He didn't say he was going to follow. He said, I might. No, I should just follow you. I should just follow you home. That's what he said. Okay. Thank you. Imagine if I said that to somebody here. I would be in handcuffs instantly. You heard him say that. I heard it. So what though? So what though? This is a criminal proceeding. I know. Grab a dollar coffee. Yeah. Good, huh? Holy cow. So Nicholas Barber just threatened me. He just threatened me.
How, what did he do?
He said he's going to follow me home.
Follow you home?
Yep. He said he's going to follow me home.
That's weird.
Yep. I got two witnesses, a sheriff and an independent person said they heard Nicholas Barber say he's going to follow me home.
He said it in front of the cop and me.
Yep.
That was really strange.
Imagine if I said
Maybe
that to anybody that works here.
Quote, he said, maybe I'll just follow you home.
What did he say that for? In what context?
I don't know.
He said, just like you
I don't know.
follow, turn your cameras on.
Obviously, he wants confrontation. Obviously, he's trying to stir the pot and cause a confrontation where none exists.
Drop charges if you were white. When has the government ever done that? When has the government ever done that? Hey, good life.
No kidding, man.
I wish I could stay, but well, at least you got to hear the prosecutor threaten me.
That is bizarre.
I wonder if you can do a conduct complaint against Crown Counsel. You willing to be a witness in the threats? Oh, absolutely. That was weird. Have you ever seen anyone, an officer of court, act so unprofessional? Yeah, he starts ripping on me about, oh, you're not being nice, and if you would just listen. This whole thing would go away if we were just nice. Yeah, and I'm telling him, like, don't talk to me. Like, I'm trying to ignore you. Like, go away. The government ever dropped charges because the accused was nice? He's like, oh, you don't have to be afraid of people in suits.
Yeah. Especially when you're in court because you've been charged for operating the camera.
I know. I've only been the Crown's hostage for 2 years now. Talk about being nice. So let's get out of here, and hopefully Mr. Barber will calm down and act professional. As I predicted he wouldn't. Thanks, bud. Yeah. I'm gonna just get out of here before he starts a fight. So the judge leaves and he starts beaking me off in the courtroom. And I'm just like, yeah, well, I don't want to hear what you have to say. I'm just going to ignore you. And he goes, well, I have the right to stand here and talk to you. And I said, and I have the right to ignore you. Yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching my most important video ever. There's a lot more to come. It's far from over. What you just witnessed was a prosecutor committing a serious criminal offense in Canada under Section 139, subsection 2 of the Criminal Code of Canada, is obstructing justice. Intimidating a justice participant would fall under obstruction of justice. I know all about intimidating a justice participant because I was falsely arrested and charged with it in 2016, so it's no mystery to me. Yeah, that's definitely intimidating a justice participant. And so the trial continues. So I guess we got to have a little talk about this now, don't we? Mr. Barber threatening to follow a unrepresented accused person home. Let me just say this, that I have never, ever followed the police, and I have never, ever followed the police to their homes. Never, or home. Never. Now, I've never done this before, but I'm asking for your help. No, there's no PayPal button involved. I don't even have one. I've never asked for money, but what I need is your help in this being seen by a wider audience. The average views for these videos now is a little over 1,000. Now, I don't care about likes, subs. I really don't even care about views, but considering what I'm exposing, considering that, any smart aleck can make an entertaining video on a sidewalk and get 5 times the views in half the time, something's wrong here. So if you want to help, I need you to contact your favorite big channel and ask them to highlight this. This needs to be seen by a wider audience. I don't need money. I don't need likes or subs. I need a wider audience. That's it. That's all I need. YouTube has almost completely hidden this channel now. If you search West Shore RCMP, or even documenting and exposing West Shore RCMP, my videos, my channel, doesn't even come up in the search. So if you've ever wanted to help this channel, this is your opportunity to help me with the one and only thing you can help me with. And obviously, if you have a channel, feel free to highlight it on your channel. Big channel, small channel, I would sincerely appreciate it. They put me through a criminal prosecution for almost 2 years, and I did everything by myself. I never even asked for help. That wasn't easy. That seriously affected my personal life, and still does to this day. No less today than the day of my arrest, in fact. So if you can help, thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. Now, if you have found the following video disturbing, I have compiled the following appropriate contacts. I want to say that I don't need you to do this, and I'm not asking you to do this. So if you do this, you're doing it on your own because you want to, not because I asked you to. If you choose to do this, please be calm and respectful in your communications. If you cannot be calm and respectful, please hold off communicating and give it some time until you feel you can be calm and respectful. If you choose to communicate with the contacts below, you should know that I did try to contact Nicholas Barber's supervisor about making a conduct complaint. So how did they handle that? Well, have you ever heard me say it gets worse? So if you'd like to make some sort of complaint about prosecutor Nicholas Barber threatening to follow me home, let's start with the Law Society of British Columbia. And actually, let's start with the Legal Profession Act. Now, in British Columbia, acts are British Columbia laws. They're not policies. They are laws. So I dig up some interesting info for you. Have a look. So part 3 is protection of the public. And it starts off with complaints from the public. 26, subsection 1. A person who believes that a lawyer, former lawyer, or articled student has practiced law incompetently or been guilty of professional misconduct, conduct unbecoming the profession, or a breach of this act or the rules, may make a complaint to the society. So are you a person? Do you believe that a lawyer has been guilty of professional misconduct or conduct unbecoming the profession? If so, you may make a complaint to the society. And here's some more info from the Law Society's website themselves. This is the Code of Professional Conduct for British Columbia. And here's a little interesting bit about integrity that I dug up for you here. You can see in the lower portion there, number 2, it says, public confidence in the administration of justice and in the legal profession may be eroded by a lawyer's irresponsible conduct. Accordingly, a lawyer's conduct should reflect favorably on the legal profession, inspire the confidence, respect, and trust of the clients and of the community, and avoid even the appearance of impropriety. And here's another interesting little bit that I dug up for you. It's called Duty as Prosecutor. Now, I'm not even going to start to get into the disclosure fiasco, but it's interesting. It says here, duty as prosecutor. When acting as a prosecutor, a lawyer must act for the public, that's you, and the administration of justice, resolutely and honorably within the limits of the law, while treating the tribunal with candor, fairness, courtesy, and respect. And in the commentary, I found this interesting. It's the second sentence in there. It says, the prosecutor exercises a public function involving much discretion and power, and must act fairly and dispassionately. Following an accused person, then threatening to follow them home. Acting like a predator against an accused person. Yikes. And here's another little interesting bit that I dug up for you. It's courtesy. A lawyer must be courteous and civil and act in good faith to the tribunal and all persons whom the lawyer has dealings. Hello. And I just love the commentary on this. It says, legal contempt of court and the professional obligation outlined here are not identical, and a consistent pattern of rude, provocative, or disruptive conduct by a lawyer, even though unpunished as contempt, may constitute professional misconduct. Here's one more that I dug up for you. The lawyer and the administration of justice. And I found the first paragraph of commentary interesting, or some of it. And paragraph 1 says, the obligation outlined in the rule is not restricted to the lawyer's professional activities, but is a general responsibility resulting from the lawyer's position in the community. A lawyer's responsibilities are greater than those of a private citizen. A lawyer should take care not to weaken or destroy public confidence in legal institutions or authorities by irresponsible allegations. And I just found that last sentence really, or the first half of that sentence, really interesting. I'll say it again. A lawyer should take care not to weaken or destroy public confidence in legal institutions. Bull, yeah. If you'd like to know more about the Law Society of British Columbia, please visit their website. You can even fill out an online complaint right from the website. You can also do it by email, postal mail, or fax. Here's the information. And if you'd like to reach out to the Nanaimo Crown Council office, here's that information. And here is the person that I tried to reach out to find out how to make a conduct complaint. Her name is Jessica Patterson. Sorry to do spoiler alert, but spoiler alert, she refused to return my phone calls. She refused to communicate with me. I had to speak to her secretary and ask her secretary for her email so I could send her an email about this. And they said that there's a policy that they do not give out the emails of these lawyers, these prosecutors. So Jessica Patterson refused to speak with me and did not return any of my phone calls, and had her office obstruct me from emailing her, which I found out, of course, shortly after, that her email is public information. It's jessica.patterson@gov.bc.ca. How hard was that? So knowing what I know about Jessica Patterson, she will not speak to you about this, and she does not want to hear about Nicholas Barber threatening to follow me home, intimidating a justice participant, contrary to the Criminal Code of Canada, under Section 139, subsection 2, obstructing justice. She does not want to speak to you about it, okay? And she will not return your calls, okay? So you may have a little bit more luck with the email. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe she doesn't work there anymore. Who knows? Sorry for the spoiler, but kind of had to do it. Just kind of had to get it out of the way, you know? So that'll be an interesting video down the road, let me tell you. Remember how I told you this gets worse? And you may want to reach out to the Western Communities Courthouse, because when I'm standing there saying, Why is the prosecutor threatening to follow me home? You heard the prosecutor threaten to follow me home, right? And the response is, oh God, no. So when they know a prosecutor is committing a crime, what do? They shun me away. They don't respond. Oh God, no, no. So what if our prosecutors are committing crimes in our own courtrooms and court buildings? So what? Just go away, Dan. We're busy, okay? So you may want to inquire with the Western Communities Courthouse as to what happened. What actions did the staff take that were aware that Nicholas Barber threatened to follow me home on March 3rd, 2020? What did that staff do at that courthouse about this? You can also leave a Google review. I love Google reviews. And this was all witnessed by a sheriff. What did the sheriff do? Did he arrest Mr. Barber? No. He told me to take off and go for lunch. He said, oh, he didn't say he was going to follow you home. He said he might follow you home. So what did the BC sheriffs do about this? Did they report this to, the Attorney General? Anyways, if you want to say hi to the BC Sheriff Service, here's their Twitter account. Because they don't have a phone number and address. So who's responsible for all this? Well, it's the Attorney General of British Columbia, David Eby. Now, I would say you should contact the Attorney General of British Columbia, David Eby, but I already know that he doesn't look at his emails, and he doesn't respond to emails that, he hasn't even looked at. So, and I've called his office before, and I've said, hey, I need to speak to the Attorney General of British Columbia. And they said, no, you don't speak to the Attorney General of British Columbia. You send him an email. And I said, okay, I'll send him an email. So I sent him an email about, there's a 7-part series I have on YouTube about local prosecutors that were committing crimes and misleading judges in order to get easy wins, lying and committing crimes. It's kind of what the prosecutors should not be doing, and I caught them in the act. It's all on the record. I said, hey, David Eby, I got it all right. It's all on YouTube. You don't even have to, you just watch it. He never responded. So now this is ironic because David Eby, as you can see in the last sentence here, he's the author of the Arrest Handbook, A Guide to Your Rights, which is, I actually referenced that to the police that were arresting me that day. So it's kind of ironic, the guy that wrote the Arrest Handbook, the guy that the one that I referenced in my arrest, he's in charge of all the prosecutors, and he's in charge of all the police in British Columbia. And look at what they've done to me. And what's he going to do about it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He won't even read. If you guys email him, he won't even read the email. You guys call his office, you'll never even speak to him. Here's the contact information. Here you go. Attorney General of British Columbia. Here's phone numbers. And so it doesn't actually show the email on this page, but thankfully there is a toll-free 1-800 number within Canada and USA there. And there's even an outside of Canada USA number there too. Wow, holy cow. So there you go. Attorney General of British Columbia is responsible for all the prosecutors and all the police, including RCMP. Now, if you do file any complaints or communications, I strongly recommend that you document that, either by recording phone calls or screen capping, emails or whatever, responses, posts on their Twitter, on their Facebook, whatever. Could be deleted. And if you do have any videos or audio recordings or anything, if you have a YouTube channel, if you could put that on YouTube, that would be amazing. So the trial goes on in part 22. Or does it? What happens when we all return to court later that day after the afternoon break? Well, you're going to find out next time on Documenting and Exposing West Shore RCMP.